YOBA, what's up and what's happening? And welcome back to It's the YOBA series with me, Chris Harding. And I'd also like to welcome you back to the Diabetes Transformation course. And today we're going to be looking at how we can safely begin to reduce your drug consumption by lowering your blood sugar through the diet that you intake. So for those of you who have type 2 diabetes, or you're perhaps pre-diabetic, or even you're someone who has got a high level of blood sugar and you've been told by your nurse or your practitioner that you are in one of those three categories that I've just said, it is more than likely that at some point they're going to ask you to go on a drug which is there to help reduce the level of sugar inside your blood. Now, before I continue, I have actually had the pleasure of working with clients who have actually been on drugs such as metformin, which are there to help control the diabetes. And we have actually got to the point where we've been able to either reduce the amount of metformin that the individual's taking, or actually take them off metformin later on down the line once their diet has started to improve and their blood sugar levels have started to drop. So it is very much possible to be able to bring yourself off the drug metformin or any other type of drug that you may have been placed on. It's not always necessarily metformin, but metformin is definitely the most common of the drugs. But yes, I would like to say that it is possible to be able to take you off a drug if you do have type 2 diabetes. It just takes a lot of hard work and a little bit of intuition. Now, when I'm dealing with an individual's diabetes, I see metformin as a positive thing at the beginning. The reason it's a positive thing is it gives the individual a chance to buy some time. And by buying that time, you can then start to work on the things that are wrong with your lifestyle and also with your diet to be able to help reduce your blood sugar. And if that's monitored correctly over time, you can start to be able to reduce the amount of metformin that you take. Obviously, you should always make sure that you are being treated by a diabetic nurse or a general practitioner. This isn't just something that you should do on your own or through my guidance. This course is really just here to be able to help guide you through the process of changing your diet, changing your mindset, and also obviously taking you off of any drug that you may be on when it comes to type 2 diabetes, or at least being able to reduce that drug. But yes, it very much is something that we are using that pill to be able to create more time for the individual. So it keeps a balance within the body, and also it gives time for the individual to be able to create a better diet, a better lifestyle for them. So the dosages tend to be with metformin that they're either 500 milligram or 850 milligram, and they will have been prescribed to you as an individual. That's probably more to do with the fact of your actual current weight, your height, and also things like sex and age also come into it as well. But most of the time they'll be delivering the pill on those 3 to 4 things about you as an individual. So I can't actually give you a dosage of how much you should be on. That should have already been worked out. However, what I can say is once you start to change your lifestyle and you start to change your habits and your eating habits, when you start to lose weight, it will start to have a more positive effect on your body being able to create its own insulin and to be able to control the blood sugar by itself without having to rely on the metformin. This is where the idea is that as we should be able to clinically start to reduce the drug properly over time, your body weight should be coming down and your medication should be coming down with it. But it's a process of time, which is why we take metformin in the first place. So with people who are struggling with diabetes, most of the time it is to do with their lifestyle. It's also to do with other factors as well, such as stress, which we've also talked about. And we've also talked about the history of kind of agriculture and things like that previously in this series. But the one thing with diabetes is that it will get worse if you continue to go down the road that you're going down, and eventually the metformin isn't going to be enough to be able to sustain what you need to be able to keep in terms of harmony or equilibrium or balance within the body. So as an individual's blood sugars start to rise and rise and rise because of the lifestyle choices that they make, this is then going to be more likely that they may have to start taking a hormone called insulin. Now, insulin is actually created in the pancreas, so you actually create it yourself. And the main reason why you can't produce enough insulin is because the visceral fat around the pancreas or inside the pancreas is too high. And so basically your organs have become too fatty, and it's not just the pancreas, it will be all sorts of everything. Everything will become coated in a layer of fat. And that basically makes it very difficult for the pancreas to be able to create enough insulin to be able to control the blood sugar inside the body. So what they'll start to do once they've got to, and when I say they, I mean GPs and doctors, diabetic nurses, once they have got to a point where they feel that the metformin isn't really working anymore, they will then start to introduce insulin to the individual. Now, once you get to taking insulin, things have kind of gone a little bit too far, in my personal opinion. What you'll start to see things such as falling asleep quite frequently. You'll find it incredibly difficult to do any form of exercise, and you'll be breathing quite heavily all the time. And the reason that you'll be breathing heavily is not only because you probably will be someone who's got too much weight on them, too much body weight, too much body fat. It'll also be because your blood can't oxygenate very well. And the reason it can't oxygenate very well, as we've said in previous videos, is that the oxygen that you intake through breathing, oxygen can't attach itself to the blood cell, because the blood cell is coated in basically like a syrupy sugar, okay, which is called glucose. So the reason why you'll find it harder and harder to do things is because basically you're being starved of oxygen, and that's one of the causes of what diabetes is. It actually starves you from the inside out, which is not very nice. So again, you'll start to see things like your tissue, such as your skin, start to break down. Muscle wastage will become a lot more apparent, and you'll become a lot weaker. And as I said before, you'll start to become a lot more tired, and that is because you are being suffocated by the lack of oxygen and the too much buildup of carbon dioxide within the body. So going back to insulin, insulin is a hormone that can be injected and will be given to you if your diabetes type 2 has gone too far. Now, when you're looking at people who inject insulin who've got type 1 diabetes, it's a different scenario. With the type 1 diabetics, they have got a problem with their white blood cells. So basically, type 1 diabetes, their autoimmune system is basically kicking in too much, and it starts to attack the cells inside the pancreas. Now, inside the pancreas, there are these cells called alpha and beta cells, but the ones that we want to focus on for insulin is beta cells, and the white blood cells attack the beta cells. And so because the beta cells get attacked, they can no longer turn into insulin or be created into insulin. And so because of that, the body can no longer create its own insulin, and therefore it can't regulate blood sugar as it should do. And that's why type 1 diabetics have to have insulin injections, because they can't create their own insulin. This isn't the case with type 2 diabetics. Type 2 diabetics generally tend to fall into a category of lifestyle. So it's mainly the fact that their lifestyle has become so bad that their body is no longer being able to produce the hormones it needs to, because it's oversaturated. Oversaturated with poor choices, bad living, things such as drinking, lack of sleep, way too much stress, and obviously the big one, the culprit, is highly processed foods, and just foods that are really high in highly processed sugars, and also highly processed oils, fats such as vegetable oil. When looking at trying to reduce insulin, this should be very much something that you and your GP, your doctor, or your diabetic nurse should go through hand in hand. You shouldn't just do it on your own. You shouldn't mess with your hormones. If you're having to inject insulin and you want to reverse that, and you want to come away from insulin, then it's obviously something that you're going to have to take on quite seriously. You're going to have to start seriously looking at your diet. You're going to have to start seriously looking at your lifestyle. But yes, it can be done. I haven't personally worked with a client yet who's actually been on insulin and come back onto metformin. I have worked with clients who have been on huge amounts of metformin and they have actually reversed their diabetes through the coaching that I do, the one-to-one coaching that I do with clients who have diabetes. But I haven't personally worked with anyone who's been on insulin and been able to reverse it. All I can say is that if you are at the point where you're having to take insulin, things have got quite bad. And I don't obviously mean to scare you, but I am here to provide information and provide education. And I feel it's my job to deliver that to you honestly. Now, there are going to be other drugs that you are probably going to come into contact with. It doesn't necessarily always mean that it's metformin. It could be other types of drugs that are created by other companies, have different names and different brands, but it doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, those drugs are there to be able to control your blood sugar because your body can no longer do that for you. Alongside having things such as insulin and metformin, it's probably quite likely that you're going to have high blood pressure and also you're going to have high cholesterol. And because you've got those two things, it's probably likely that they're going to get you to go on to statins. I know certainly in this country, in the UK, they're quite keen on getting people onto statins once they're sort of past the age of 60. And I slightly disagree with that personally because it doesn't always necessarily correlate with the fact that because someone's just 60 or 65, that they're unfit and they're unhealthy. Most of the time, we are sort of pumping so many pills into people, but we're not actually telling them the reasons why. We're just saying to them that, oh, you're now 65, you should really go on this drug. And obviously the background research into drugs such as statins, they have got low side effects, although all drugs have got side effects, but they have got a lower amount of side effects and obviously less likely to produce things such as strokes and heart attacks. So from our country's point of view in the UK, they're looking at that as a positive thing to say, well, it reduces the chance of having a stroke or a heart attack. However, I fundamentally believe that by changing your lifestyle, by addressing the things that are actually bad for you, by addressing the things that everybody struggles with, such as weight and lack of movement, that if we start to reverse those things, you will definitely see an improvement in your health. And that goes for type 2 diabetes and things such as high blood pressure and high cholesterol. These are all things that you can manage yourself if you're willing enough to be able to take care of your body. So guys, to summarize for you, I'd just like to let you know that if you are someone who has been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes or that you're pre-diabetic and they're asking you to go on a drug such as metformin to be able to control your blood sugar, don't take it as a threat. Don't take it as something like, oh my God, my life's completely going to change. Nothing's going to change. As I said, these drugs do actually help us buy time, as long as you are willing to start the reversal of your type 2 diabetes or pre-diabetes. That is got to be done through time. You definitely don't want to start rushing things. I've got a few clients who come to mind, and when they first found out that they got diabetes and they learned that they could reverse their diabetes through weight loss, they went on these massive crash diets and lost huge amounts of weight in very small amounts of time, which is really bad for the body. It's not the weight that you want it to be either. Probably a lot of it is water and muscle weight, and you don't want muscle wastage. The last thing that any human wants is muscle wastage. That actually kind of goes back onto things such as fitness. If you start to just move more, if you start to go to classes, if you start to work outside, if you start to work in your garden, if you go to the gym and start to do anything such as resistance, all of those things are going to help benefit you and your diabetes. One really interesting fact is that it's been proven if you increase the amount of muscle tissue in your body, it therefore means that your body is able to store more glucose, which then can be stored as glycogen into the body. So basically, if you've got more muscle tissue, your body can actually store more sugar. Now that is a good thing, but it does take time to put muscle tissue on. But most importantly, we want to make sure that we're reducing the amount of blood sugar in the body, mainly because blood sugar is so corrosive and it is not good for the body when it's just sort of free falling around the bloodstream. It will begin to break down muscle tissue at quite a rapid pace. So you need to make sure that once you are given the drug, that you do seriously start to look at reducing the amount of highly processed foods in your diet. You start to increase the amount of exercise, you rest more, you try to deal with your stresses better, and control things such as cortisol, which is the hormone in your body which basically is for stress. You start to control those things more, and just start to turn the dial the other way. But do not panic if you are someone who's just been diagnosed with type 2 diabetes and they're going to suggest you go on to metformin. You need to go on to metformin or another drug similar to that to be able to balance and control your blood sugar. And from there, you can then start to work backwards and get back down to the levels that you need to be. Okay guys, I hope you found this video informative and also helpful. If you do have pre-diabetes or type 2 diabetes and you'd like to get into contact with me, please either drop me a message below on the YouTube channel, or you can get in contact with me via my website, which I'll put in as a link below in the description box. Please like and subscribe to the channel, and also any comments you need to make, please do so. Reverse your type 2 diabetes. Be fit, be healthy, and of course, be a boss bud.
It's the YOBA series.